Hey, y'all. How's everyone doing today? I'm just getting myself together before we start getting into the conversation. Okay. So, today I'm going to be talking about a couple of different topics. Today is about myself, who is Indigo, what is Indigo, where in the world has Nikki gone? So, that's a good question. My name wasn't always Indigo. I changed my name about 5 years ago, almost 6 years now. The reason for the name change, well, a lot of people have been asking me, why the name change? Well, the old version of myself and who I was is not who I felt like I was meant to be. When it comes to my family, there's a lot of things about my family that I felt like I was trapped in that opinion, that idea. Like, my whole family has definitely had their opinion of who I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be, who I was supposed to become. And I had to live behind the shadows of who my parents were. So for a long period of time, I wasn't allowed to be myself. I wasn't allowed to live my own life and make the moves that I wanted to make for myself and, become the person that I felt I was supposed to be. I was so stuck behind everybody's opinions of who I was supposed to be. So what does that mean, Indigo? Okay, cool. So we're going to get into that. So when I was a little girl, I came up in a family where I was raised with my grandmother and my step grandfather. And my mother, she had suffered, and she still suffers from lead poisoning. And so she's illiterate. That doesn't mean that she's dumb or far from understanding things. She just understands them in a different way. And when I was young, we ended up going through some tragic events, which led my mother down a very questionable path in her own life. And so a lot of the family was looking at me as a child that was going to be subjectable to becoming the product of my environment and falling in my mother's footsteps. Mind you, my family's not that innocent or perfect, and they all have their own flaws in their own ways, but I felt like I didn't want to be associated with a lot of the craziness that was involved with my own family. Habits, way of being, way of doing things. I've always felt that I didn't belong to my family. I always felt that I was very different. And I felt that for a long time, I did feel like I was adopted. I did feel like I was an outsider looking in and being involved in part of a family that wasn't very accepting of me or my wants and my needs. And so for a very long time, I was very afraid to be something other than what was expected of me to become. So when I get the questions, where did Nikki go? Well, Nikki really didn't go anywhere. Nikki just decided to change her life, do things differently, see things differently, respond to life in a different way. I don't really fit in with my family. I've never really been big on drama or toxic or just craziness within those that are around me. Like I'm very to myself, and I'm a very big introvert, so I don't really interact with many people. And when I do, I'm definitely a chatterbox. That's why it's hard for me to transition from being this introverted person in front of a camera to how I normally am outside of a camera. Like, I'm a very big personality with a lot of different ways of expressing life. Like, I'm definitely not a normal earthling. I definitely feel like I'm from a different planet. I definitely know a lot of things I probably shouldn't know when it comes to others and just things in general. So when I get the questions of, or when I hear from others that say, well, where did Nikki go? And you know, whatever happened to her? Well, Nikki just transitioned into Indigo, and Nikki decided to kind of so Indigo allowed Nikki to die off, and anything that was associated with Nikki. Nikki's life was very confusing. Nikki's life was very hard. Nikki's life came from a lot of trauma and a lot of toxicity. I was raised around a lot of abuse growing up, and a lot of drug habits, and having to watch my family go through the amount of craziness that they went through. I didn't want that lifestyle to become my own. And I didn't want my children to be subjected to any of that either. So a lot of people that have crossed me and come, you know, around me have said that I betrayed my family by stepping away. I don't feel that I betrayed my family by stepping away. I just chose to choose a life that was more fit for myself and my family. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect, because I'm far from perfect, but I chose to just make a heart over head decision to do things that I felt were better meant for me and my life and my life purpose, versus keeping me stagnant to the opinions or the ideas or the epiphanies of others, thinking that my life was supposed to be one particular way. And that's not the way that I wanted my life to be. So I stepped away from being Nikki and became Indigo, because Nikki was a life that was allowing herself to be taken advantage of, and allowing herself to not be listened to and be heard, and allowing herself to not be recognized by others as an individual with her own feelings and emotions. And not only that, like, when it comes to who Nikki was, Nikki experienced a lot of craziness when it came to relationships, when it came to what was acceptable and not acceptable in Nikki's life. About 6 years ago, Nikki had a moment where, you know, I just woke up and said I had an F that moment. I was tired of the world that I was in. I was tired of the lifestyle that I was living. I was tired of the people that were around me and the way that life was headed. And things had to make a change. At this time, I ended up pursuing away from Nikki and transitioning into Indigo, because it's crazy how it happened. I ended up having a dream or a vision or whatever you want to call it. And the vision was saying the person that I was for all those years, up until the point of where I just switched and something had to change, it was time to change. Like, I had got a vision where Divine was telling me, it's time for you to change your name. It's time for you to change the way that you live your life currently. And I have a plan for you, but this plan is going to require you to completely leave behind the old version of who you are and step into the new version of the person that you're supposed to be today. So why the change? The change was because the change had to happen. Growth doesn't happen until something changes. And unfortunately for me, that change had to start with my name. The name that originated with me had held on and was tied to so many negative things from the past that it was hard for me to step into this new version of myself. And I still struggle today to try to step into this new version of myself because, well, what the change? Why did it change? It changed because, one, it had to. It changed because Nikki was for so long allowing others to kind of dictate who she was supposed to be for so long that Nikki struggled to know who she was. Nikki struggled to understand where she fit in the world and if it was going to be okay to be someone different. And so when Nikki died off and Indigo became a thing, like Indigo, took over, and I literally, within a transition of 6 years and me becoming Indigo and stepping out of who I was as Nicole, aka Nikki, it was a big hassle, and everyone around me didn't understand why I was changing my name, why I was stepping away from my past, and why I was stepping away from my family, and why I was stepping away from people that were in my life. Like, I literally had went through a whole 360 within 6 years of, I pushed everyone away. I changed my name. I changed the way my life was going because I felt that my past and everything that was associated with my past served no more purpose in my life. And all it was really doing was holding me back and holding me down. And trying to become this new version of myself, still being Nikki, still being Nicole, wasn't helping me because everybody had already had an opinion of who I was. Everybody already had an opinion of who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing and the kind of person I was going to be and the jobs that I was supposed to do. And it was a struggle transitioning from Nicole into Indigo. And that doesn't mean that I don't struggle today, because I still struggle with trying to transition from the old version of me into the new version of me. And I've heard every name in the book from, oh, you're being fake, to you're being brand new and you're being different, and we're not good enough for you. It has nothing to do with anybody. It has everything to do with, I felt that I deserved to live my own life and be my own person and choose and decide what I wanted in my life, and not really so much as living for what everyone else wanted for me. It's like every time I wanted to venture off and do my own thing, I was kind of forced to be this person that I wasn't. My biggest pet peeve, I think today still, is, oh, well, I know her, and I know Nikki, I know Indigo, I know them. I mean, but do you really know me? Because for the amount of people that claim they know me as a person, have not reached out to me, have not asked me serious questions like, how have I been the last 10, 15, 20 years? I've been hidden from the world for 20 years. It's 2 decades. In 2 decades, I've been really doing it on my own, trying to find my footing, find my steps, find who and what and where is it that I want. And I struggle every day to try to figure this out. And I'm 41 years old, and I struggle every day trying to understand who I am as a person, as an individual. And not just to say that I'm trying to struggle and to figure out who I am now as a person. You have to also add the fact that I have discernment. I have special gifts and abilities that I never asked for. God just kind of said, hey, there was a conversation that was between me and God one day, and I remember it to this day. I was about 13 years old, and God said, I have a plan for you, and there's an action plan set in place for you, but I need you first to understand that things are about to get really uncomfortable. You're not going to be respected or accepted, and it's not about you. And at 13 years old, I couldn't understand that everything that I was about to go through had nothing to do with me. But I had to play a huge role with everything that was about to take place. And that goes down from childhood up until now. I was experiencing things in the home that I saw a lot of abuse. And then I was a child that didn't know how to handle the abuse. So I would hide under a table because I was afraid of what was happening in the home. And I wasn't allowed to talk about what was happening in the home. Because if I talked about what was happening at home, then I was getting threatened for speaking about what was happening at home. So I was a child that wasn't allowed to speak. Then I was a child that wasn't allowed to speak about the things that were going on at home. And I wasn't allowed to talk to others about what I was experiencing in my own life at home. And then I wasn't allowed to speak about the crazy spiritual things that were happening as well. So when I was trying to express my feelings towards the people that were around me that were supposed to be bringing me up, I was quickly silenced for expressing my feelings and my thoughts and emotions. And then when I would express the things that I was dealing with spiritually, it's like I was shut down with that too. And I was always, you're not allowed to speak about the things that you're experiencing when it comes to spirits, when it comes to spirituality and the demons that I was seeing. And mind you, when you're a child that had a near-death experience at 2 years old, and then you live your life with the gift of discernment in a household that has their own demons, and you're not allowed to speak about the demons and the things that you're seeing at home, that doesn't help a child that has these special gifts and abilities. Then on top of that, you're struggling to understand yourself in this environment, and you can't speak about anything you're seeing, anything you're experiencing, and then you're not allowed to talk about the spirit stuff either. So it's like I was very isolated, and I was very much an introvert, and I was afraid to speak to people about anything that I was experiencing because I wasn't allowed to speak. And after a while, it became to the point where I didn't know how to be, and I didn't know how to live, and I didn't know how to express and feel and respond, because I was constantly always told to be quiet and not talk about things that were happening. Whether it was at home with me spiritually, physically, emotionally, I just wasn't allowed to speak. So as an adult, it created this stagnation inside of me where I suffer from imposter syndrome, where I feel like as big personality as I am, and as much as I like to talk to others behind a camera, it is so hard for me to find the words or the collective thoughts to speak on camera. And that is because of growing up in a lifestyle of not being able to speak. That imposter syndrome has taken over, or is trying to take over, my life now. That doesn't mean that I'm comfortable speaking on camera, because I'm far from that. But every day I try to be more and more comfortable with being visual, focused, and in front of camera with a steady thought and mind process. So every day I try to get up and say, okay, well, I didn't have control over the things in my past, and I didn't have control over the things that were happening in my life, and I didn't have control over the things that were in my childhood. And for a lot of my adulthood, like I didn't have control, and I was very much out of control. I was definitely looking for love in all the wrong places, and I was looking for attention in all the wrong places, because what I was looking for and was needing at home, I wasn't getting it. And I also wasn't feeling like I was being heard or respected or valued. And growing up as a stepchild, or growing up as a child that's not being raised with your parents, that does a big toll with you too. So like for a big part of my life, my mindset, I wanted the white picket fence, and I wanted the family, and I wanted the connectedness of my parents, but that never became a thing. I was raised by my grandparents, and I saw a lot of craziness at the home, and I was raised by my uncle, and my uncle played a big role in being the dominant one. And so, when you're raised with craziness, and then you're raised around others, like, my uncle was very military, and then my grandparents were very stern and like dominant with how they felt and how they did things. And you weren't allowed to mess up. You weren't allowed to, and be embarrassing or be an embarrassment or step out of the image that was supposed to be played at home. So it was hard to like step into becoming whoever I was trying to desire to be until now. So there's many people that say, well, why now? Why talk about it now? Why talk about the change, and why talk about, who I became now? Well, who I was was a very lost person trying to still figure out life and try to understand that I am allowed to be who I wanted to be, and I'm allowed to be who I felt I deserved to be because that's what I wanted for myself. So I went out of my comfort zone and I ended up writing a book, which is this book right here. It's 21 Steps for Change When Life Gives You Lemons, Work, Build, Love. Now, I'm going to let you know this is not my greatest work because it really isn't. This was my first book ever written. But I wanted to kind of turn what I had experienced in my life and create a journal and a manual, and also in a way an autobiography that kind of explains and talks about like the things that I went through and the things that I experienced in my own life, and how, you know, I dealt with my own issues with trust issues and addictions. And that's another thing that gets talked about on a regular basis when it comes to me. You know, I'm going to clear the air now that I have the opportunity, because I was able to do that in this book. Like, I felt like if anybody was going to learn anything about me or know anything about me, who better to explain me than me? And so I come from a dysfunctional family who didn't allow me to become the best version of me. And I decided to write a book about my dysfunctional family in not a sabotaging way. I tried to be as respectful and loving as possible when it came to writing that book. But I also had to leave a lot of my personal feelings when it came to myself and what I was experiencing in that book. And I told a lot about myself and what I was experiencing with my relationships, what I was experiencing with how I handled my personal addictions. And I didn't have addictions when, like everyone else would think was an addiction. Like I've never been addicted to drugs. I've never been addicted to alcohol. I've never, you know, done any of these type of things. My addiction was I was looking for love in all the wrong places and looking for affection in all the wrong places because I felt that I was lacking that at home. And I really didn't know or understand what love was. And I ended up learning what love was and learning to understand what acceptance and respect was recently. This is all new to me, for me to just get ready to understand like this new version of myself. I'm so sorry, guys. But, you know, now, you know, being in this new part of my life where I've changed a lot about myself, and I went from someone who was lost and confused and didn't know what they want to where I ended up becoming a licensed life coach. I ended up becoming a certified licensed minister. I ended up writing a book and becoming a published author. This book ended up receiving an award because although it's not the best written, and it has a lot of mess ups in it because it wasn't redone and relooked at. I still ended up getting an award for it because it relates to a lot of different people in many different ages. And basically, the book is talking to me. You're talking to me, but through a book. And you're journaling. So you're letting go of all the hurt and the pain and the embarrassing things you wouldn't normally talk to a regular person about in this book. And then I give you a lot of ways on how to handle these situations, so that you feel like you're getting one-on-one coaching without having to really be around anybody. It becomes more intimate and more personal. And that's exactly what I wanted for this book. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was perfect in my sense. And then once I ended up doing this book, I kind of started realizing that a lot of doors started opening for me when it came to public speaking, when it came to group sessions, when it came to coaching others, when it came to understanding my own feelings and what I was experiencing. You know, outside of that, I was able to transition being this old version of myself into this new version of myself, to where I am stepping out of my own comfort zone, and I'm talking more and more about the things that I experienced, and the things that I felt were important enough to talk about. You know, many have asked me, why did I change the name? I changed the name because I felt that it was time Why Indigo? Because Indigo had power behind its name. That was another name that ended up coming to me through a vision. Spirit just came and dropped it in my mind and said, your name's going to become Indigo. And Source says, well, you know, you're a gift to humanity, so that's what Indigo is. And then Nikki is just basically queen, and then divine, you're of God, like God, and from God. So the name together was, I guess, what God wanted for me. I didn't really choose it per se for myself. It just came to me in a vision. Let's see, what kind of problems have I been dealing with since transitioning into this new version of me? Well, since I've become Indigo, I have noticed that a lot of people have a lot to say about why I changed my name instead of just directly coming and asking me. A lot of people have felt that I became very fake or bougie because I decided to change my name and change my personality and who I am. I didn't change anything other than my purpose and what I felt was meant for me. Who I am is still here. Authentic is never going to change. Will I get more comfortable with speaking more freely about who I am? Over time, I feel I will definitely get out of my comfort zone and speak more and more about who I am, and what exactly it is that I do. I am definitely a cosmic being. I definitely feel like I am from another planet. I have been told many, many times that I'm a Pleiadian. I guess that's an alien from a different planet. That just means that my soul is not from here. And my soul is from a different cosmos. And I chose to be in this body, in this lifetime now, to go through a lot of the trials and tribulations that I have experienced, to teach others on now not what to go through in their lives. So it's ironic on how I ended up becoming a life coach and a minister, right? Because the amount of things that I've experienced in my life and have, had to really understand and go through was not for me, but for others that were going to have to go through this too and not understand why. Well, I can break down the why. We go through things because we have to go through things for a life lesson that's not really always for us, but for other people to have to learn. What is our purpose for being here? We signed a cool contract before we were born to come to Earth and say, I want to live this life cycle and go through these life lessons and this journey with someone. Based if you sign a contract to be with a life partner, that's usually a twin flame, but those are different topics for another day. I chose to be here and be some kind of a healer or helper for others. And I truly believe that. And I truly understand that with my every being. There's a lot of Easter eggs that I could be talking about when it comes to understanding all of that as us as a dimensional being. But first, in order to even understand all these things, you first have to even know who I am. I'm a multifaceted person with a lot of different things coming. I just first have to get out of my own comfort zone and talk more about myself to release this stagnation inside of myself so that I can feel more comfortable talking about the things that I know. And I know a lot of things about a lot of things when it comes to spirit and what's happening in the planet and what's happening when it comes to religion and what's happening with the governments and the things that they don't want us to know or talk about. And trust me, I've been shut down on a regular basis for the amount of Easter eggs that I'm about to spill come the further days. Now, one thing I will touch on subject while I'm touching on subject about myself and why I became who I became. I decided to change my name and change my person because the anointing that was placed on me is a lot bigger than I can even express here on camera. And since I've transitioned into this new version of myself, the last 7 years have been very interesting. I've experienced spirituality and I've experienced like spiritual gifts my entire life, but the last 7 years have definitely taken its turn for some craziness. When I tell you I have experienced ghosts communicating with others, to ghosts communicating through devices, to people getting contacted from ghosts, to experiencing extraterrestrial beings, and that'll be something I'm going to show you guys in the coming months. Next couple of months, it starts to get warmer, where I'll be outside more, and I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about when it comes to those type of things. And the amount of like spiritual attacks, like pastor's wife and God, source and spirit, literally has been pre-warning me that I was set up to do something that was going to take over the masses and help those in the masses. And there was going to be a shift and an awakening. But I had to go through a shift of craziness before I can start touching on those subjects and start getting in towards like this new, I want to say leap year, even though it's bigger than a leap year. But there's about to be a leap that happens within our atmosphere, and we're going through it right now. But with the whole process of the world going through some kind of change, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically, I have also been taking a toll of some craziness. So I have had a bunch of people trying to, I guess, bully their way into my energy. About 3 years ago, I ended up going through some crazy experience. I have never experienced a day in my life before. I mean, I've experienced spiritual attacks, and I've experienced like psychic attacks and craziness like that before, but I had never experienced a demonic attack the way that I experienced it about 3 years ago. And that demonic attack was actually sent to me by someone that thought that they can alter the fabric of my reality and the world that I live in. These same people are the same people that Spirit has been warning me from for the last few years. And my pastor's wife ended up pre-warning me a year before the craziness even happened. Because there's some new stuff that's about to start taking place when it comes to spirituality and like the spirit things that are happening within the realms, especially with all the stuff that's going on with the sun right now. And so it's like my body is preparing myself for whatever this craziness is about to take place. And so you have those that are trying to get themselves into my energy and definitely alter and change things that are in my life. But these things I'll slowly be, talking about more and more as the time goes, and expressing more and more about what these type of things are as I go. So health and wellness, helping, healing, breaking old generational curses. So with that being said, like me transitioning into this new version of myself is definitely my time to break generational curses and the way our generation has been doing things, teaching a new approach to life and living, and ending old habits and way of seeing life. So I will be definitely getting more into these type of topics going further on down the line. I guess my biggest thing right now is asking, what is it that you guys would want to know when it comes to what exactly is it that I do know? I know a lot of different things. I am a spiritual being, born with a lot of different unique skills and gifts that I didn't ask for. And I know a lot of different things about a lot of different areas when it comes to just about anything. Like, I've been considered to be the guru. So I'm going to leave it there with that. A lot of people had been asking me why I was changed my name, why I became the person that I become, why now, and where am I headed to? Well, why now? I decided to do it now because why not? And where am I headed? Well, I guess you'll have to keep watching. I'm into a lot of different things, and a lot of doorways have definitely opened up for me. I'm getting out of my comfort zone, and I'm getting more into the old version of who I was and who I feel like I was meant to be. So only time will tell. If you guys are curious and want to know more about who I am, where I came from, what transitioned me into wanting to go in this direction of change, and what I'm trying to get into next, and how you can even get involved, definitely leave me comments, ask me questions. I would love to know more on, what the world is curious about, and to know if anybody does recognize me, and had been questioning where I had been all these years. 2 decades is a really long time to disappear off the face of the earth. No, I'm not dead. No, I did not become crazy. No, I did not become an addict. Those are all false rumors. I am just revamping the new version of me to become God's purpose for all of you, if that makes sense. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it here. My crazy self has been rambling enough, and a little bit about knowing me and what exactly it is that I'm getting into. Bye, guys.